We are signing Slough. We are signing players. We've done 8 already this summer transfer window, but is it too much for Lopetegui to blend in? And, is there kind of an argument that there's been too much change in this transfer window that we're going to see a slight disruption? But again, we're going to get into the squad depth. We're going to debate what we think. But if you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, as it's massively helping us out. And we're pushing for 3,000 subscribers before the end of the year. But this is a visual Slough. So we've pretty much got 2 players in each position, other than kind of that left wing area, and maybe some kind of slight deviation in the midfield where you've got like Kudus, Ward-Prowse, Paqueta, Souček, but at 6 you've got Rodriguez, Alvarez. So is there an argument that we've done too much change? Because you look at, say, what our starting lineup probably will be for Aston Villa. It will be Wan-Bissaka right back, probably. It will be Todibo. It will be Kilman. It will be Rodriguez because Alvarez is injured. And again, maybe Fulkrug or Antonio. So you're looking at maybe 4 or 5 changes to the starting 11 from last season. Is it going to be really difficult for Lopetegui to blend these players in, because we've signed 8 players and, a lot of them are competing for the starting places in this team?
I think such a big summer was always going to be a challenge. There is a big task in integrating all these players and making sure that they all buy into what he's trying to do. But there's some very important key elements involved in that. One of which is the fact that we've brought in quality players. We've not just brought in bodies. And I do like that you have purposely left out Cornet and Ings, by the way.
Yeah.
That is a good touch, because let's face it, they're probably going to be going. But
exactly,
it's one of those things where I think that the key issue is the quality we've brought in, and we can have the versatility. It's not just a case of someone's going to not play, so they're going to be unhappy. That's not how football works. And if you think we're unhappy at West Ham, imagine how Chelsea are. Imagine how Manchester City are. Imagine how all these top clubs and their extensive squads are. It's just not realistic anymore. And the other thing is that success kind of begets any of that. If you're on a good run, if you're in a good place as a side, then the positivity comes with that. And I think, I'm not saying that we're going to start and win everything, but I think that like as soon as people buy into a system and they get behind it and they start to see results from it, it will settle the squad. And Bournemouth had a very similar thing last season, where I think they went 11 games without a win. I think they picked a few draws, but I don't want us to be anywhere near that. But it's the importance of patience. There will be times when we need to blend in these players and make sure that we can kind of give them time to apply Lopetegui's methods. But that's the same with any manager, and it's not like so he's coming into the job halfway through a season and there's already a core element of the dressing room and a side.
I think as well, my kind of argument was that because it's a new manager, because it's a new system, making this many changes is less important. Say if you had a manager 3 or 4 years in a job and you've got a set structure and you're bringing in 8 players, I think that's when it gets a little bit more difficult. I think because Lopetegui's come in and it's all fresh, it almost negates some of the impact of bringing in 8 players. And again, they're not all being brought in to be starters. Fotheringham's not going to play. Guilherme's going to be an impact player off the bench. So you're then looking at 5 or 6 potentially coming in and starting. But I think the key point as well is they've been quality signings. They haven't been signings that are just to fill the squad or to fill out the bench. They're all going to be competing for that starting 11. And as we show it back here, we pretty much have 2 players in each position right now, which is the best squad depth we have had for a very, very long time. And it's not like we're just pushing or shoehorning players into positions to fill this out. You know, we've got Paqueta in his natural 8 position. We've got Kudus in his more centre 10 position. We've got Bowen and Gilherme, who are naturally kind of left-footed out on that right-hand side. You've got 2 strikers and Danny Ings, who isn't even on here, and Cornet, who isn't on here. So we've brought in players to address key areas of the squad, which is going to help us in the long term. And I think you mentioned it earlier, just then, Sloth. The key word is patience. You know, we're going to have to be very patient as a fan base for this to kind of blend together and for us to get the results that we want. It's not going to happen overnight. There's going to be some frustrating results. There's going to be some frustrating performances. But I think West Ham fans, including ourselves, are quick to jump on negativity and results. So again, we try and stay clear of that. We try and give the manager the time and respect that they deserve. I think Lopetegui will absolutely warrant that this season because of the changes that have been made. But you know what? He's made some fantastic signings. You know, well, we've made some fantastic signings for his squad. He now has the foundations to build how he wants. And I think a lot of the players we've brought in have suited the profile of, as you mentioned, Lopetegui's system of playing. So is there anything here that concerns you that could maybe disturb the dressing room, having this many players and trying to integrate them? Because David Moyes was kind of the polar opposite to this setup. He said he preferred a much smaller squad where you're rotating less, you're keeping the core squad happy, and there's less room for, you know, bad eggs, you know, in the dressing room. Is there a potential, say, Antonio doesn't start for 5 games, Somerville isn't getting minutes, Guido Rodriguez is sitting on the bench because Alvarez is playing really well, Souček and Ward-Prowse again drop out? Is there maybe an argument that too many players could spoil the party for Lopetegui this season? This video is sponsored by Emotive. Emotive provide cutting-edge digital services, solutions, and training to companies and businesses of all sizes. Emotive have worked with some fantastic brands in the past, as you can see behind me, the likes of Apple, Google, Tesco, and of course, Babylon Irons. Emotive offer 4 key services, the first being digital solutions, the second being professional training and coaching, the third being fractional experts, and the fourth being AI readiness. We're going to be working with Emotive on our channel to improve how we showcase the data to you guys in our breakdown videos and data analysis videos. If you want to find out more information about how Emotive can work with you, make sure to scan the QR code now, which will take you to emotivetouch.com, where you can find out more details about the company, and the link will be in the description. A massive thank you to Emotive once again for sponsoring this video, and let's get back to it.
I think there's always a risk with any player you bring in that you've got a bad egg. It's not just a case of, you know, this person, or he's a gamble and we know he's a bit of a maverick. If someone's frustrated with not playing, it can come from anything. It can come from, you know, Craig Dawson wanted to go back to live up north because of personal reasons, and we know he wanted to do that, and he applied himself. Cresswell threw his toys out the pram and like refused to train for a bit because of similar sort of thing. Like he wanted to go back up north, and I think that there's ways to look at what those sort of challenges are, and then bad eggs in the dressing room, and someone who is just out for themselves in terms of they're not putting the squad first, they're not putting the team first, and understanding that at the end of the day, your employer is the person that you're like, you know, you want the best for them, and you're getting paid pretty handsomely to make sure that happens. I do think as well that one of the key elements that we kind of just touched on then is that these are players who were brought in for necessity as well. They're quality players, but then they were necessary for what we needed. And for so long we were talking about the squad depth. Well, now we finally got it, but it's come with a manager as well who's not going to wait until the 82nd minute to make a substitution. It's going to be someone who's looking to make a change and reading the game so he can adapt to it. And, you know, Unai Emery is someone who we saw that sort of result with. We saw a proactive manager making changes, and these are both European Cup winners. You know, it's a case of a manager with a similar style in terms of, well, approach to the game, willingness to make decisions, and sometimes those decisions backfire. So as a fan base, we have got to understand that you may get a bad egg in the dressing room. You may get a bad result. But what's key is that we've fleshed out the squad for a long time to come, but we've also put ourselves in the strongest position, not just for the Premier League, but for the FA Cup and also Carabao Cup. You know, it's we've built a squad, and we're not gonna, well, hopefully not gonna run that squad into the ground.
I think as a manager, it's really important to get that point across to players that maybe aren't in the starting 11 every week, that there are 38 Premier League games, there are FA Cup games, there are Carabao Cup games. There are going to be moments in the season where you need to depend on your squad players, you know, the players on the bench to come on and make an impact, because at the end of the season, those are the ones that might be the difference between, say, 9th position or 10th position and getting into Europe, you know, getting those 3 points instead of a draw, or, you know, salvaging a point away, you know, a difficult ground, or, you know, there are situations where squad players are needed. And I think as a manager, it's really important to get that message across and ensure that everyone is on the same page. And, you know, you need a dressing room where, again, as you mentioned, the players that aren't playing aren't sulking, aren't going off, because we saw that last season. There were players that were conflicting in the dressing room and you know, causing a slightly more toxic environment. We can't have any room for that now. I think because the squad is bigger, naturally there's a tendency for that to happen. You know, different personalities, different players approach it differently, but we need as many squad players approaching it as if they are part of that squad and as part of the process under Julen Loptetegui, and they have to play their way into the team. That's how you should be looking at it. If you're sitting on the bench, you have to make the impact. You have to give the manager something to think about and something to change to get into that starting lineup. And I think that's probably the most difficult aspect of a manager. Again, they can have all their tactics, they can have all these players, but keeping the harmony of the squad upbeat and making sure your squad players are alert and ready to come on and want to make that impact for you, and you know, what showed a positive attitude to make a difference in a match. It's very tough, because if you're being left on the bench week in, week out, it can be very demoralizing. But it's up to you as an individual to approach it and change that. You know, you're the one that's going to be responsible for that at the end of the day. So I think for me, it's getting the balance right between giving players minutes when needed / necessary, but also, as you say, being proactive in matches where we need to change something, whether it's not working after 50 minutes. Don't wait till the 75th minute to change it. We have the players and we have the options now to change the dynamic of a football match, which I think will get us more results in the long term this season.
I think a massive element to remember as well is that the communication is so key, and that communication isn't just like fans to the players and to the manager. It's the coach and the manager to the players. And if Nicholas Füllkrug goes on a run where he doesn't score for 6 games, Antonio comes off the bench and scores in every single one of them, then you've then got to be able to communicate to him, look, Füllkrug was fantastic, or you know, he's doing what I want. My approach is that you come on in the 60th minute, and the reason that you score those goals is because he's worn them down. He's been going at them, and I need to see that you can start if you want to force your way into that position. It's about making sure the squad understand that there's a reason that happens. And you know, Moyes was someone who didn't do that. I don't think that's unfair to say. You know, you look at someone like Alex Corral and his comments, and other players in that similar sort of situation where they said, you know, he didn't really talk to us, he didn't really explain anything. Vlasic as well. Yeah, you can't have that. And that's the sort of thing that would cause, say, if you didn't say to Antonio after a good run, I want you to be my impact player off the bench. I'm a bit worried about your hamstrings, but you need to show me if you want to start, that you can be that, you can do that. And then suddenly goes on his podcast and says, well, I've been doing all of this, and I've been like, it's a case of, if you talk to him and tell him, look, you're going to get a chance. At the moment, doing really well in this. Why, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. You could end the season with 15 Premier League goals, and why should we change it? So if you can tell him that, and he's happy in hearing that, that's what's important. It's the best thing for the player, and it's also the best thing for West Ham. And I think if he were to say, you know, I think I'm a better player than Fulkrug and I want to start, then Lopetegui can go, okay, then show me, and start him in the next game or start him in a cup or whatever it might be. He can give him that opportunity, but the communication is key. And coming from a manager who had a bit more of an old school approach in that department, I think that that's going to be very important going into the season and keeping this squad happy, but also keeping the new members of the squad, perhaps who have come in from a different league, and getting them settled in, getting them involved in the environment. And Kudus was someone who last season spoke about how important it was him having his fellow countrymen there to help him settle. And I think that those things are just as important for the managers and the coaches to try and help with, as well as the squad. So
Yeah,
it's a big season. It's a big season of turnover, but I think that it's something that every club has to face and does face in this day and age.
Yeah, 100%. It was needed, right? We were sat here at the beginning of the transfer window saying we need a massive overhaul. It's happened. We're going to do our review of whether it's been successful or not in general, but by and large, we're kind of leaning towards yes. So it's definitely been a positive summer. It could have been a lot worse. We've probably been the most active club across Europe in terms of signings, and we're up there with money spent as well. So we've backed the manager. We've made the necessary changes. And most importantly, we've also started to remove some of the burden of the squad. It looks like Cornet is going to be going, Ings is going to be going, Zoom is almost gone, or probably will be gone by the time this video goes out. So it's slowly but surely building a squad that can compete on multiple fronts and, sustain challenges over a season across different competitions. So I think the key word for this season is patience. It's time. It's allow Lopetegui to integrate his, look at Arteta. It took him 4 or 5 years to build where he's got to now. People were saying Arteta out after the first season, after the first 18 months, but he's proved a lot of those wrong after building the squad he needed and getting rid of the deadwood and making the necessary changes. So it's not something that can be done overnight. It's not you don't just wave a magic wand and we've suddenly got this amazing team that's going to qualify for the Champions League. Doesn't always work like that. So I think we just need to be cautious, but also very patient with how we progress this season and not to get too frustrated too quickly if results don't go our way straight away. So it's a tough job for Lopetegui to get this blend right and to integrate all of these players and keep everyone happy. But it's a good problem to have. It's not like we're understaffed or undervalued with our players that we've got. So yeah, let us know in the comments down below. How does Lopetegui get the balance right this season for West Ham with all of these new additions and current players that we have? It's the biggest squad we've had in a long time in the Premier League. So how do we get that balance right? Leave a like on the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to the channel, as I mentioned before, if you are new. And Sloth, until the next one.
Come on, you eyes.